And then we'll always have like at the beginning. I should go in and edit these videos
Yeah, this
on,
awkward part.
yeah, where I'm just sitting here like trying to get the second side of it set up because I'm
Yeah.
always sharing it over to Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's just, or I guess I can just leave it in there and make it
Yeah.
weird.
Well, it's like the blooper reel. We'll call it that. Mm, okay. My mic is good still?
Yes, you still sound great.
Okay, good.
Not super loud like you were earlier.
Screaming into your ear.
It
I'd
was
rather
loud.
be whispering into your ear.
I can't see you right now, so I don't even know what you're doing. But
Whispering into my microphone. Hmm.
all right.
Oh, now, brown cow.
I, you do like your warm-up vocals.
I do. Yep. Hack a little. Oh, hi, friend.
Come on. Maybe this will be easier to do from the phone. Taking forever. That is so complicated. I'm sure people come across these videos on because it shares to my page first, and
So
they're
not
like,
just like
"What?"
our almanac.
Yeah, they're probably like, is what is this video for? Like, what's happening here?"
Why are they just standing there or sitting there?
Yeah. So, anyway, so yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will have Shannon answer them. So, welcome to the Kettlebell Almanac again. We're going over the resilient competitor and basically, how to stay in the game or when you get frustrated, like how to get back in the game. So I'll let Shannon here take it away with, I think she has a place that she wants to start. So,
Yes. Okay. So just a little bit of background about me. I'm not, just so you know that I'm not pulling this out of my butt. Can't swear, right? Anyway. So my background,
you can, I mean,
and
I haven't been blocked yet,
okay,
so
that's good. Well,
I
I'll try
was
not
swearing quite a bit on the last one.
to. Okay, good.
So,
So freedom to be me. Okay. So my background is I have a master's in sport and exercise psychology. I do a lot of work with athletes on, excuse me, on motivation, burnout prevention, and then just that like mental readiness for sport or competition or games or anything like that. So I want to start, I have kind of like a flow going on where I'm going to start with motivation, give you certain tools to use that are a little bit more specific, not just like breathe and then you'll calm down. Like that is so groundbreaking. So I'm the type of person that needs like more specific um, skills, like step by step, and things that I can use and rotate through instead of just relying on one thing. So, yeah, I'm just going to start with motivation, and we're going to do a lot of reframing too. And I'm going to put like my exercise sport therapist voice on occasionally, but I'll try to do my best to just be me, the one that Kim loves. So, all right. So, motivation to start. This is going to be a lot more like educational than my last one was more physical. So, I'll try not to be too like professory, but we'll try to again fuse it into like realisticness. So, all right. So the first thing, a lot of people don't understand motivation like to its core. And what we need to know is that motivation is unreliable. Like I'm sure people have gone through spikes in motivation and dips in motivation, but we cannot rely on motivation at any given time. So instead, we shift and we think of system or ritual or habit beats your mood. So you're not relying on your mood for motivation, you're relying on your routine and something that you've practiced. So it doesn't become, how am I feeling today? Or I'm feeling unmotivated. I like to tell people that there's not a difference. Motivated and unmotivated are not a continuum. Unmotivated doesn't exist. It's more of being motivated towards something different than what you want to be motivated in. So I'm not unmotivated to train. I'm motivated to not, or I'm motivated to lay around, or I'm motivated to do something else. So instead of using that terminology, like my motivation is gone, it's not, it's just directed somewhere else. And so it's important to try to figure out where your motivation's target or fixation is instead of where you want to be. So then it's also thinking identity beats motivation too. So we as kettlebell sport athletes are like vegans. We want to tell everyone that we're kettlebell sports athletes and talk about our training and all of that. So
That is not true.
okay, but someone says like kettlebell and you're like, kettlebell? Let me tell you about
Nobody's saying
kettlebells
kettlebell. Nobody's saying kettlebell on a day to day. I've literally,
on a day-to-day basis. No, they
this is,
say kettlebell, and it's like, so anyway, you make it it's part of your identity. So you see yourself as a kettlebell athlete or that you enjoy kettlebell, and that typically outweighs your lapses in motivation or the changes in direction of your motivation. Like, this is a part of me as opposed to I have to do this,
I think it's also kind of like, as someone who, if you're a parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you want to have these other things that you're doing that are part of your identity so that when one goes away, you're not just left with nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I identifying like, who you are, why you're doing it. Because yeah, I mean, of course, like, I mean, I've been doing this for 14 years, I think now, maybe a little bit longer, something like that. And when you come in, I definitely am not motivated every single day when I come in. In fact, probably I would say 70% of the time, I'm not like, yes, I'm gonna get to go train tonight. There are some nights I come in and I'm really excited about doing it. And by the time I get done, I feel really good and I'm really happy that I did it. But there's plenty of times that I come in and you're like, just,
It's just ain't it
but
today.
right. But it's like in my head, it's like it's a mandatory requirement that I have to do it,
Yes.
So I have to show
System.
up today because it's Monday and Monday is when I train. And if I don't do it today, I'm not going to be able to do it tomorrow. And so having the consistency of feel like, nope, today's the day we're doing it, and that's the day we're going to do it.
Yes.
To keep yourself to a standard, because once you start skipping, it gets easier and easier to skip. And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden, you're not training at all. And then
Right.
it's doubly hard to get back into it. I think for me, like when I used to train jujitsu all the time, and then I stopped training jujitsu because I was doing kettlebell and I just couldn't do both sports together.
Mm-hmm.
It was just too much on my body. But now it's really hard for me to think about, I would train every once in a while doing jujitsu, and then it got to be like, once a month to once a quarter and now it's almost impossible for me to think about getting back on the mat because I feel
Yeah.
like so behind,
It's been too
like
long. Yeah. Yes.
it feels like a physical, like it's almost like a depression, it feels like a physical barrier mentally
Yeah.
for me to go do it. So I think trying to break that initial cause of getting to there by keeping a schedule and, even doing it when you don't want to do it, even when no one's watching, be like, I'm still going to show up and get
Mm-hmm.
something done,
Yes,
you know?
absolutely. And so it's about building your system. And also, like I said, I'm going to go over a lot of like mental reframe because like we've all heard about like, oh, positive self-talk, which is true, but it's like reframing works a little bit better because you're trying to retrain your mental pathways, and you've built mental pathways your whole life where you feel this and now this is happening. And that's where like catastrophizing comes into play, or like, well, I, like you said, like the all or nothing thing. Well, if I don't do it, then I'm just not doing it. Like, or like the whole, if I don't do it perfectly, I'm not doing it, or like,
Mhm.
so that reframe is more of like, instead of I need to feel motivated or I need to like get motivation, it's more of like, this is what I do. This system is what I do when things are feeling too difficult. And so it's, this is me. This is what I do. This is my skill. This is my system. So if those days come up where you aren't feeling particularly driven to train, you're like, well, this is the routine. Just got to go through that. Like you said, Monday is this, and that's like one of the best ways to start, is to just like build that system. So you're not relying on wanting to, you're relying on, like, kind of like you said, is when I pick up that bell, I start, like I start the set no matter what. And you're telling yourself that. Um, and you're making it a choice. I'll talk about this a little bit later too, but like feeling obligated or pressured is not good. You want to reframe it as like, every time I'm choosing to do this, this is my choice. It's my autonomy. I love kettlebell. Sometimes I hate it, but in the end, like, it's a part of me. It's something that makes me feel good about myself. And it's something I want to keep striving for. So that's where you kind of give yourself a little mini tool, is like the no debate rule, where it's like I said, the bell is in my hand. I'm going. I'm not stopping until my set is over, or, it's more of like just giving yourself that rule, giving yourself that criteria, and holding yourself accountable for that. So I know, and I'm sure everyone knows, like mid set is hard. It is hard when you get to that like fourth minute or sixth minute, at least for me. It's like,
Are you talking about for like a competition set
yes,
or
sorry.
okay?
Well, both. Actually, I should say both, because when you're doing long sets, even in training, I mean, at least in my experience, it's easier to push through when I'm at a competition as opposed to just training on my own, because it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like doing this. And like when you're in competition, you're like, this is happening, and I trained for this, and your adrenaline is going and you just go. So it's like, it could be either way, because sometimes too, a lot of times, we get in our heads during the set in competition too, where you're like, this is too hard. Like I'm not going to survive this set. And so some of the tools that I want to go through mid set, whether it's in training or in competition, one of them is called, and I'm going to, I was talking to Kim earlier, I'm going to post this handout that I made so you guys can go back and look at it, and kind of use whatever works for you. So the first one is called the 3-step reset. So basically it's when panic hits or your form starts falling apart, and then that triggers panic. Like I'm starting to fail now and I can't get it back. So you do a 3-step reset. The first step is naming it and telling yourself, this is fatigue, not a slippery slope to failure. Like I'm fatiguing right now. It's just, that's a body thing and a mental thing too. So then you shrink the game and you just say, okay, only this rep matters. This rep. If you miss a rep, that one doesn't matter. It's gone. This next one matters. This one matters. This one matters. Every time, like the whole one more rep things that you guys do,
I
where
was just
it's,
gonna say that. I was
yeah.
like, like during the set or even during a competition set, usually for me, honestly, like the first 3 minutes are my
Mm-hmm,
hardest
mm-hmm,
because I just one, it's the first part where my mind really hasn't settled and started to zone out. Because I also do things like when I'm competing to get myself to zone out where I'm not actually thinking about anything. I'm focused on just like an object or a point, and I'm not internally reviewing stuff in my body all the time.
mm-hmm,
Um, but in those first 3 minutes is when I usually struggle the most because I haven't set into that part yet.
mm-hmm,
And I start to immediately think about, am I already starting to feel tired? Is this going to go well?
mm-hmm,
Are my arms feeling tired? Why do I feel uncomfortable? Why does this bell not feel like it's like sitting on me correctly? It makes me feel like I can't breathe. And
Mm-hmm.
so trying to get to that point during the set where I'm zoned out more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, usually what I do, well, one, I have a breathing pattern that I'm always focusing on.
I
So
was going
it's
to just say
really
that.
hard. Yeah, so
Yes.
I count my breaths and that's how I do my pacing, which I've talked about a bunch of times. That might not work for everybody, but that's how I do it because if I'm counting the breaths, I literally can't think about anything else.
Yeah.
Like
You're
it's
not,
just
you're,
impossible for me to
yes.
focus.
Yeah. And
And
I
then
have,
I pick a point on the wall. Like usually it's a TV behind the judges or whatever. I pick a point somewhere up there and I like, if you ever look at like ants, if they're running around and then your vision gets all blurry because there's like too much to look at.
yes.
That's how I get on the point. I just like zone out and then all I'm
Blur.
doing is counting.
Yes. Blur. Yeah, absolutely. And so, and that kind of like gets you in a space too. So, we did name it. This is fatigue, not failure. Shrink the game, one rep at a time. And then you pause and re-anchor your breath, which is why I was going to say, just like and Kim taught me that breathing pattern. And it always helps me where it's just like, I'm not worrying about my total reps. I'm just counting these breaths right now. And that'll come into play with another tool. But so when you're in rack position or you are in snatch and you're in fixation, just pause, one big anchored breath, and then you're thinking about like if you're talking about snatch, like the path down from there, like pause, okay, path, or like with long cycle, that bringing them down, dropping them, bringing them back, and just pausing, counting the breath, focusing on that and going. So that's important. It's not just like breathe through it. It's re-anchoring your breath, like reconnecting with it instead of getting into this place where you're overwhelmed. And then, because then once that happens and you're not recentering, your breathing is off. It's not on rhythm with your reps. And then you start to panic again, being like, I can't get this right. Like, how am I going to finish this set if I cannot nail these reps? And it especially comes into play when you start getting no counts, and one no count like really throws you off. And then two in a row, that really throws you off. And so it's like, I need to reset. And so that's a good step where it's like, name the issue, shrink, make it adjust one rep at a time, and then re-anchor when you're in that space.
So
So,
if Ivone is watching and she said she's really consistent about having like a lot of positive talk, but usually midway she really starts to like mentally panic, and then by minute 5 she feels like the struggles, like unbearable, and it's at
mm-hmm,
that point she gets really frustrated. She's like really like wanting to put the bells down.
mm-hmm. So
So
any of these next few would be good for that. I mean, the last one, but when you're in that, there's another tool called attention narrowing. So in the bad focus, and this is what we end up in, especially in that situation that you're describing, where we're focusing on the whole set, the pain, how much time we have left, the outcome. Am I going to win? Am I going to lose? Am I going to fail? Am I going to drop the bell? Am I going to tear? All of those things. And instead, you want to, we kind of alluded into this, but a better focus, I almost said gooder. A better focus
more
is,
gooder.
yeah, a one thing only. And you only give yourself permission to think about one thing at a time. And I run into that with snatch because there's so many things to think about. How do I drop? How do I shift? How do I breathe? Like there's so many. So instead, you give yourself one thing. And it doesn't have to be the same thing throughout the entire set, but you train your brain to only focus on one instead of all these other thoughts that are coming into your brain. And so some examples would be like the bell path. For snatch, for me, that helps me where I think about bell path, drop, grab, swing, up, and then just go through that sequence. You can also do your breathing rhythm, which is what you talked about, Kim, with like, when do I exhale? When do I pause? How many breaths am I taking in that pause? You're concentrating just on your breath. Or you can do like the feel contact, which is very helps like what you're saying in like rack position. Like it's not resting on my body correctly. So instead, your goal is to get that part, that part, just like contact, or like in fixation with snatch, like concentrating on how the bell feels when you fixate. Okay, that feels good. That feels good. And you're just only that. And then your cadence, which goes with the breathing too. Breathing is a very good way to pace, like you said, but also pay attention to your cadence. And it kind of becomes like we talk about like kettlebell meditation, where it's like it becomes a pace that you go into this flow state, and it's the same fluid motion, and you try to just keep that pace. So making yourself like that discipline of like, again, no debate rule or only focusing on one thing. Like I'm only allowed one thought per rep. So right now my thought is bell path. If I start to trail, one thought per rep. So now I'm like, okay, if I concentrate on breathing rhythm on this rep, so you are setting that rule for yourself where I don't allow myself to have more than one thought per rep. And so that really narrows your attention. And then you're teaching yourself not to think about, God, I have like 6 minutes left, or like my forearm's fatiguing already, I'm just going to fail. It's just one thing at a time, one thing at a time. And then that
And
helps.
most everybody, when you get to that point where you're like, oh, I want to set down. And I know probably almost everybody is, as soon as they set down and they get down off the platform and they're like, I could have
I
done
could have
more
gone more.
reps.
Yeah,
I
I
could have
could have
done
gone.
more reps.
Yeah.
You get down off the platform and you realize you're not as tired as you thought you were. You
Mm-hmm.
still feel really good. It's not like after a training set where you're like dying, your arms are all wobbly, and you're
Right.
like, I could have done more. Like I should have just stayed up there for another 30 seconds, and I think that's like where the one more rep, okay, center. I'm not going to worry about, I'm already starting to struggle. So I'm not going to worry about the pace anymore. And I'm just going to do one more rep.
Yep.
And when I feel ready,
Only
I'm
this
going to
one
do
matters.
another rep.
Yes.
Yep. And then, you get to a point where you get in those last minute or two where you're like, oh, okay, we're like at the end. Like I can make it a minute. I can
Mm-hmm.
make it 2 minutes. You could do
Yes.
anything for a minute, which isn't true, but you can do anything for a
Holding your
minute.
breath for a minute, it's probably not a good idea.
But you get to that point and then because pain in your body is 100% all in your head. Like your brain creates the pain. Like your muscles don't feel pain, your skin doesn't feel pain. There are
Mhm.
receptors there. That's why people can do all kinds of crazy like stuff that they can ignore pain wise. You see people like that put hooks in their back and swing from them. You're like, that has to be so
Right.
painful.
Yeah,
Well, well, it
it
really
is.
isn't, because it's like in your
Right.
head. And so
Yes.
they have created stuff that they think about to transform that pain into something that is basically feels good, right? So
Yes.
getting to that point in your set where you can start to be like, okay, nope, this is going good. And then to keep push through. Obviously, there's going to be times when you are just actually fatigued and you
Yes.
can't carry on. But I
Mhm.
think, probably a lot of times when people end up stopping, especially early, that it's not necessarily fatigue.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
assumed fatigue.
Yes. Yeah. And then like there's so kind of piggybacking off of what you said, like I mean, all of these kind of go together, but it's just like the structure is different. Sometimes certain structures work for other people. But then the next one I have is micro goals. So not paying attention to how many minutes you have left or whatever, or like I need to get 80 more reps on this arm, like that's not a good space. So instead doing things like, okay, 10, if you're counting 10, I can get another 10, I can get another 10, and you just keep going like that. Or if you're a time person, it's like, okay, 15-second intervals, I got through 15 seconds, I got another 15 in me, and just keep going like that. Or being like, all right, I'll do 20 more and I'll reevaluate where I am. So it's like snatching, for example, or single arm, being like, okay, I can get 20 more. Like, I feel like I'm fatiguing. Let me just get 20 more and then I can switch. Or, you give yourself permission to do something else. And so it's like, then you get to a point, okay, I got 20. I'm reevaluating. I'm still good. I can keep going. I can keep
I
going.
feel like it's making deals with yourself. I do this when
Yeah,
I'm training.
absolutely.
So
Yes.
I'll have a set training set. I'm
Bargaining.
supposed bargaining with myself, like about
Yeah.
what I'm going to do. And usually my bargain ends up being worse unintentionally.
If you
Um,
put this down, You're
Well,
dead to me.
it'll be like if I'm doing a training set and some days you just don't feel as good or you're just not as motivated and you're going through the set and it's just not going well, right? And you're like, well, I might as well just stop because I'm not going to hit my numbers anyway. It's not going to be a valid training set. Like I'm not moving myself forward. But when I'm having those days where I'm having a bad training set, I always
Mhm.
stop and I look at my data and I say, hey, where can I have a win today? All right. I
Mhm.
didn't make the numbers I wanted to make. So what can I do to have a win? Okay. Maybe I'm going to do some extra sets at a lighter weight. Okay. If I make it, I tell myself, okay, if you make it past 22 kilogram today for however many rounds, then you're allowed to drop the weight. Right. So I just
Mhm.
need to make it two more times around. And then I'm going to give myself the opportunity that I can drop the weight. And I may get to that second round and be like, I can do one more, you know,
Mhm. Yes.
um, to give yourself like light at the end of the tunnel, I guess is the
Yes.
best way to say it.
And I think like I'm going to challenge that just a little bit. It's more of what I what tends to be better is you come up with a win before you start. Where it's like, okay, if I get to you said like 20 kg or whatever, then that's my win for today and the rest is just gravy. So it's like or it can be something like if you're not feeling particularly ready to train, you're like, okay, if I just make it 15 minutes, that's a win. And then usually by then your endorphins are going and you feel good and you're just going to keep going anyway. So
Hmm.
there's a therapy technique called like the 5 minute rule. And it's like, okay, I don't really feel, and you can do this with like cleaning or work or whatever. But in this case, like kettlebell, it's like, okay, 5 minutes. I don't want to do this today, but if I do 5 minutes and I get through that 5 minutes, then I'm good. And then you give yourself permission to be like, I can always stop. And then you never do. You're like, okay, I'm good. Like I'm warmed up, I'm in the set, like, and here we go. Like we're gonna keep going. And so but like we were saying, mini goals, like micro goals, but going into it being like, here's my win for today, and then you usually achieve that, and then it's like, okay, well, what's my next win for this training session? Like I achieved it, but I don't want to stop. So what's next? And so going in with a plan is important. And kind of going off of I can't remember, you said something that triggered this, but another tool is it like a joking, it's like a safe word, but like it's a don't argue cue too. So like again, there's another therapy technique called thought stopping. So when you start to like trail off, you literally tell yourself stop, but in this case, you don't really want to say stop because that kind of like is a word of like that can trigger like a mental pathway of like I can be done, and if you don't want to, then you can use other words that are like that just interrupt thought processes, and they're just one word. So examples would be, and we just said like we were talking about bargaining. So when your brain starts bargaining, being like, oh, if I do this and this and this, so instead of that, those thought processes in your brain going rogue, you say something like go, go, or like now, or easy, or breathe, or, things like that, where you just one word to reconnect you to what you're doing. Like for me, I do breathe, like breathe. Okay. Breathe. Cause that I tend to hold my breath. And, but that is easier ways to do like thought stopping where your brain starts trailing off, it starts going rogue, you start to panic, I'm not going to be able to do this, and you just stop it with one word, however whatever word works best for you. And I wanted to also go, you went into like we were talking about like the hooks in the back and like um how your mind will always give up before your body will. Like our bodies are so resilient, they can do anything. It's just our mind that throws us off, which is why sports psychology is so important. But talking about fatigue, actual fatigue versus panic, or like I think you said like
Hmm.
anticipation or something like that, like fatigue versus panic, and knowing the difference between the two, and to
Yeah,
stop.
because when you're standing there and you're like, I feel so tired, I'm breathing so hard, my legs are starting to get tired, my arms, and then you
Yes.
put the bell down and you're like, oh.
I
really
wasn't.
wasn't, I wasn't
Yeah.
as tired as I thought.
Yes.
I could do more reps, you
Yes. And
know?
the problem is that we misread sensations because these two separate things feel the same, and actual muscle fatigue and mental alarm tend to trigger the same feeling in our brains. So we misread them. And so we need to teach ourselves to read them and name them properly. And so when we are feeling
Because
discomfort,
10 minutes is a long time to sit there in your head, like thinking
absolutely. Yes,
constantly about how
absolutely.
you feel.
Yes. And so instead you are acknowledging it, and you like the way that we get into this thought trap is that we are treating our discomfort as danger too early, where it's like, I'm going to drop it, or I'm going to fail, or I'm going to hurt myself, or I'm going to tear my hand, and then I'll be screwed for the rest of my
You switch
event.
early during a snatch set
Yes.
because you're
Because you're
worried you're going to drop
panicking.
it. And you're
Yes.
like, I should have done 10 more reps because I could have held on to it. But the fear then outweighs like
Yes.
you doing what you're actually capable of doing.
Yes.
And yeah.
And that, like, so a good reframe for that is telling yourself, like, okay, my brain is trying to protect me. I think about, if anyone has seen Inside Out 2, if you haven't, you have to watch it, because I feel like it's for adults more than it is for kids. But like, understanding that anxiety, panic, like all of that stuff is your brain trying to protect you from something that it's worried that is dangerous. And when you're in this place of feeling pain and exhaustion and all of that, your brain is triggered like, okay, we're headed in a dangerous direction. So learning how to reset, reframe, understand that this is my brain telling me something that's not true. And it's okay. Like, cause that's another thing that in like psychology and in mental health in general, is to stop judging what your brain does. Like you, like I said earlier, is you develop these pathways over time, and understanding like they make sense based on past experiences, that these pathways have um, paved way into our brain, and we're just used to them. So instead, you can kind of stop those and then retrain them and it's like, if you think of like a highway, you can cut it off and make a different highway to go to where you need to go. And so a good tool is like the 10-second rule. And I know that this is kind of hard because 10 seconds can be a long time to like hold fixation, but like in rack position, 10 seconds isn't as bad because you can pause. So, but you feel like dropping the bell, wait 10 seconds, don't drop it right away. Give yourself 10 seconds. And it's kind of like a game where you're like, if I can't survive this 10 seconds, I can put it down. But you never do. Like, that's the thing, you almost need the permission. And then you're like, I don't really need to, and it's that difference between this is my choice versus this is my obligation.
Well, you're also going from like, okay, I'm just going to go to wherever I can make it to, which isn't really a goal. There's no quantitative factor in it.
Right, right.
And you don't get like the positive mental feedback of completing a task.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're like, I'm going to do, okay, 10 more reps, 5 more reps, 10 seconds, these little micro goals,
Micro
then
goals.
when
Yeah.
you complete the goal, you feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if it's just a blanketed, okay, the set's not going well. I'm not going to hit my number. That's negative, negative. Okay, I'm just going to try and get whatever I can get, which is what you're going to do in the end, but
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it in a different pattern. So that
Yeah.
way it's like, okay, I completed that goal.
Yes.
What's my
What's my
next
next
goal?
goal? Yep.
Right.
And I feel that this is for me personally. It might be different for other people, but like for me and other like clients that I have, they do better with concrete rep counts as opposed, or like concrete counting, like breath, instead of like, I need to survive 1 more minute. That's a good like
Yeah,
Hail
because a minute is
Mary.
a long time ago.
Yes. But like, that's a good Hail Mary where you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
know, the whole, like, I can do anything for a minute, whatever. But that's a good thing at the end. Is like, okay, I've done this before. I've done a minute. But when that starts happening, like, it doesn't help when you say, I can make it 6 more minutes, because that's too many minutes. So instead,
It's too far in the future.
yes, exactly. That's a future Shannon thing. So instead being like, yeah, 10 reps or whatever. So in this like 10-second rule, it doesn't necessarily have to be 10 seconds. Sometimes it's helpful to like force yourself to watch the clock to do like 5 seconds or whatever. So you do pause, but instead, like you can easily do this in 1 minute. Sorry, 1 minute, in a couple seconds, but you adjust your breath, like we talked about before, recenter, find that breathing cadence that you've been training and you've been used to, then recenter, like pause where you are, recenter your stance to where it's comfortable, where you feel like if you've kind of moved out of your foundation, reset that, and then visualize your next rep. So before you do it, visualize, okay, for a long cycle, I drop, clean, and jerk, pause and then jerk. And like you see it and then you do it. So it's like teaching your brain to reconnect with your movement as opposed to the thoughts that are in your head. So, and then you continue. And then if that happens again, you start to like check out in a bad way. Again, you pause, adjust your breathing, recenter, visualize the rep, and then continue. And it doesn't need to
You
be
were
10
talking
seconds
about, which I
long.
think this goes along with this, is talking about, words. Because your brain can only focus on so many points at one time, which is
Yes.
why for, like happiness and mental clarity and feeling like positive, it's important to be involved in very integral activities like reading or painting or something that involves a lot of your mental capacity. Because
Mhm.
when you're able to, when you're doing that, you're effectively like shutting your brain off because it's not really actually thinking about anything, it's just happening.
Yes.
So when you're talking about words and you're like, oh, every movement that you're making, clean, rack, jerk,
Yes. Yeah.
clean, rack,
It's like a mantra.
jerk. And it's the same thing as the breathing, but
Yeah.
it's creating a mantra that it's very hard for your brain to think about another problem because it's focused on saying these words. And
Yes.
then it just all of a sudden, 2 minutes has passed and you're like, oh shit. Okay, well, we only have 2 minutes left now.
Yes.
I was four
Yep.
minutes away. Now I'm only 2 minutes away. Okay,
Mhm.
clean, rack, jerk. Or for me, it's like 1, 2, 3, rep.
Good.
I mean, because I'm
Yeah, right,
counting
right.
my breathing. It's the same. It
Yeah.
really is the same thing. Just refocusing um,
And staying
what's
consistent.
happening
Yeah.
because you feel less pain when that's going on because like
Yes.
pain is all in your brain.
Yep.
So if it can't focus on the pain and it has to focus on the rep counts, like
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's two, like I've gone into like if there's, and I'll go into this too, but like it's concentrating on something else, like if there's a song on, like singing in your head, where it's like, that's
My
what I'm
voice is really
concentrating
bad, even in my head. So I might not do that one.
on. Memorizing, reciting poetry, reciting the table of elements.
Oh, it's been a while for that.
No. But like keeping it simple too, is important. And that's like, it's like a mantra where you are, and it doesn't have to, I mean, to me, it's easier to do like the technique where, like you said, clean,
Hmm.
pause, 2, 3, jerk, down, down, or like doing it that way because it keeps me in the set. But it could also be like we talked about earlier, is instead of like counting, if you're not a counting or a numbers person, instead being like those cue words where it's like breathe, go, drop, or like easy or something like that, like having that on repeat and connecting it to the movements that you're doing, it really solidifies that mind body connection, and then your mind doesn't go rogue because it's connected to your body. And like it's just every rep, every part of the rep is being acknowledged and done, and then you are more likely to
Hmm.
concentrate on the success of each of those movements, you know just to kind of like segue, one, I wanted to kind of open up for questions right now in terms of like motivation reframe or motivation tools mid set.
Well, if anybody has anything that they utilize when they're training to kind of help
Mm-hmm.
them get through the set, that's not like, for my people, it's probably me yelling at them, but that you utilize yourself, that's something maybe different than what we've kind of talked about. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's always,
It.
for each person that's struggling, different like things that you can be like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm going to try using that.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
because it's reframed in a different way, which, than what we're specifically talking about. Feel free to post those.
Yep.
Um, so how do you feel like since we're talking about fatigue and, mental burnout, how can someone tell the difference between like when they're truly starting to get burnout, um, and, just we're having fatigue, obviously, but true
Mhm.
burnout and like what are some ways to, because I think when they start to feel like that, that's when it becomes a struggle of non-motivation of trying to come in, to kind of refocus themselves to, stay on the horse.
Are you talking about like sets, or are you talking about like training?
I'm talking about training in general.
Yes.
So, like, where I think a lot of burnout, there can be like true burnout, right? Where you're just training too often,
Mhm.
which does happen with some people. I think
Mhm.
for the most part, majority of people don't necessarily go through that because we have regular lives happening. So,
Mhm.
versus maybe
Like high school
someone,
athletes where
high school
that's their
athletes,
whole
or
jam. College, yeah.
yeah, or you're in college, um, or even professional athletes because
Mhm.
that's like all they do.
Yep.
So, what are some things that signify like real burnout where you like, okay, I need to take a
Mhm.
day
Yep.
versus like I'm just fatigued. Um,
So I'll skip down to my burnout
oh,
section for
sorry.
that. No, it's okay.
You
It
should have
doesn't
sent me
have
your
to be.
notes.
I know I should have. That's okay. I can go back because then it's more of like different drills to train your mind the way you train your body. So either way, it doesn't really need to be in order. So um burnout in general, a lot of times it's a misconception of what it actually is, and you kind of touched on it, but just to like make it more succinct, it's burnout doesn't, if you really concentrate on it, it doesn't really, it doesn't actually feel like physical exhaustion. That is, instead it's turns into something that feels like you don't care anymore about something that you loved or what brought you joy, which is like a really common symptom of depression, where it's like they ask all the time, do you not feel joy for things that used to bring you joy? So that's a trigger for burnout too, where it's like when something used to be joyful for you, and like you were talking about jujitsu, like you just stop caring. And that's where like burnout can get in, can play a part, or that is burnout. So you're not feeling mentally, or no, you're not feeling exhausted. You don't care anymore. That's when you know that you're in actual burnout. And so to kind of talk about that and like burnout prevention, and this will kind of illustrate a little bit of what burnout is based on the prevention techniques, but understanding that we need to build sustainable motivation, and that is not more discipline slash willpower. It's not more grind, and it's not more intensity. We think that it is, being in like a society it's like no pain no gain, force yourself to do this, and like removing your autonomy and your agency, and understanding like I'm choosing to do this. This is something that I'm choosing to do. No one is telling me that I have to do this. And unless you're like, yeah, professional athlete. But so getting rid of that mentality and connecting the two, that motivation is just grind. You have to keep grinding, and that's the way you keep it. That's a really quick way to have your motivation toward the sport or whatever you're doing fizz out. And then it's really, like we said, really hard to come back after that. So the idea of burnout is prevent instead of damage control. But damage control is not impossible. It's just better to just not get there in the first place. And that's where I wanted to go over different mental shifts when talking about burnout and preventing it. So one thing would be rotating your why for each training. So you're not only training for numbers, ranking, proving yourself, or proving something to yourself. Not having that be your only motivation to train, or your only driving force for training. So if it feels, because that becomes pressure, not fuel for training. That just is pressure. Now you're putting pressure on yourself, and it's unnecessary, and it leads to burnout faster. So instead, you have different modes. One is performance mode, because those things are important. You need to you do need to have a goal for chasing numbers and your ranking and like placement in competition. Like that is important. It just shouldn't be the whole thing. So then you also shift to like skill mode, where you now, like, today's training is refining technique. I'm not going full out. I'm not sprinting. I'm not going using my competition weight. I'm going light and I'm concentrating on my technique. And then there's enjoyment mode, where we tend to forget, where it's like, um, instead of having this like grueling plan or this grueling training, you're doing like a fun version, or something just completely different. Like for me, like I think you called, I don't know, maybe I made this name up, but the circle jerk, where you do like a minute on, a minute off of jerks with different weights. Like to me, I love that workout because
It's
it's
called
fun.
circle intervals, but you just called it circle
I'm
jerk.
calling it
It's fine.
circle jerk.
I mean,
Okay.
I think that some of the girls call it circle jerk too,
Yeah.
because it sounds funny.
So yeah,
But
circle jerking.
those sets are more fun because
Yes.
they're only
Because it's,
very intense towards the very end, and you
yes.
get to try and go fast. And it's like,
And then you come back
there's,
around and
mhm.
it's easy again. So it's like, okay, if your max is the 20 kgs and it's hard, then you're like, okay, after this minute I rest and I'm back to the tens, or whatever. Like that's easy. And then they feel easy again. And it feels there's enough like movement happening in the training that you are kind of you're not focused on perfection. You're focused on like, this is actually like fun. It's a new like interval way to train. And just calling it circle jerk will make it fun
By
anyway.
the way, that is like everybody's favorite set. They always want to do circle intervals, probably because, I
Yes.
mean, when you get to the end, you get to try and go heavy and do more reps. And so it's like, oh yeah, like last time I did extra, I did more, like I beat
Mhm.
my PR or whatever. But then immediately after that, it gets easy again, right? Although
Exactly.
it's truly not that easy because you're fatigued and then you're going back to a lightweight and going fast. Katie
Yes.
said she
Right.
loves circle jerk. Everybody loves the circle jerk,
I was gonna
I'm
say
pretty sure
everyone loves a good circle jerk, right?
yeah.
So in like to kind of sum that up, like not every session or training session should feel like a test. So that's where we struggle. Like it's great to do like tests once a week, every other week, once a month even, but not every session needs to have the pressure of test. And
I think
so
it's why it's
rotating
important to
in,
have many goals, like we were talking about
yes,
earlier.
yes,
You're going into a set. Okay, last time in the beginning, I did 20 reps. I want to try and do 21. Like, I don't have this big
yes.
goal. It's just like, my
I
goal
got one
is
more.
to do one better,
Mm-hmm.
and to have those many goals within your set in
Mm-hmm.
order to have that positive feedback where you're like, oh, yes, like
Yes.
I did a
Well,
good job. And so,
yeah, and there's another thing that I learned from you too, where it's sometimes it's fun, not all the time, but maybe I know you do this all the time, but like concentrating on volume versus time under tension or reps, where it's like, okay, in this training session, I want to lift X amount of weight. No, it doesn't matter how I get there. That's what I'm doing. So it's low pressure on like, I have to survive this minute. It can be, um, I just need to get 200 reps with this 16. However I get there, I get there. And then so at the end of the day, I hit that volume and it's lower pressure because you're giving yourself time to do it. And it doesn't have to be done in a specific way every time. So that's another good way to like track your progress once for one, but then also give yourself permission that it doesn't have to be rigid in how you do it. It's just, let's just have that final goal, at the end.
no matter what, like I know a lot of people, I know, especially my clients, right? So I will give them a training set and they get so frustrated, especially when they first start training with me, because they're not completing the sets like to prescription.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like you're not meant to complete it exactly. Like it's made for you to fail. Like if I'm not setting it hard enough that you can complete the whole thing through
Then it's
without
not hard
having
enough.
any, then it's not
Yeah.
that hard.
Yeah.
So realizing that failure is a part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, each time we just want to like put our toe over the line just a little bit. And those little tiny steps over the line over the long run make up for a huge impact versus
Mm-hmm.
like you training super, super hard, You do way, way better than you did the last set because you just push yourself beyond your ability, which then takes off of your next training
Mhm.
sets instead of
Yep.
us just consistently being like win here, little win here. And then, these hundreds of small wins add up to, in the quarter, add up to a lot
Hmm.
versus you trying to push yourself so hard to hit a number that then you don't hit, which then has a negative effect on you
Hmm.
mentally, which makes
Hmm.
it harder to go into the next set, and so really retraining those things to have more positive outlooks on what you're doing because no matter what, you're still doing a lot. Like you're doing way more than most people do.
Yes.
You're doing more than you
Yes.
did a year ago.
Yep.
And if something happened which this is kind of one of my other questions too, which I think this falls within here, is like when you have poor performance, like how do you um, get back on the horse? Like you
Hmm.
have a failed set, you've missed your number in competition multiple times, whatever it is. Back when I used to play softball when I was a kid, you'd go through like where you'd have these bad hitting um,
Hmm.
times, and you start to get in your head about, when you get up to the plate to try and hit the ball, that you're so focused on like, what if I don't hit it again, that you you basically make it happen because you're
Hmm.
just, you know,
Yes. So
um,
I instead of looking at it as like damage control in the moment, it's tends to be more effective that you prepare for it. So my daughter's second grade teacher said practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And so instead of being like, I need to figure out what to do, or there's another thing too. It's like you can't teach someone to swim while they're drowning. Like you cannot try new things if you're drowning, like if you are in this panic mode. So instead, it is and I'll get there. There are techniques that you can do in the moment, but the best way to do it is to train your mind the way you train your body. And so, but in terms of like burnout and staying ahead of the game with like prevention strategies, one of the things I tell people is to one, just going back on understanding the difference between mental failure and physical failure. So when you're training to failure, you're training to physical failure. Like, I cannot do this jerk. Like, the bells are going to come down, like that is physical failure, not I can't do this. I can't do this. So you have to push through and be like, my brain's saying no, but my body can still go. So
if you're not
go in
throwing up
until
at the end, you weren't at physical failure yet.
right.
If
If
you're
you
not dry
literally
heaving,
go, your brain tells you that the jerk's going to happen and you try and it's like, nope, my arms, that's physical failure. So understanding the difference too, and not thinking that physical failure is reflected on or reflective of performance failure or you being a failure. It is like we are training our body to completely just like go till exhaustion. Like that's what we're training because we need to be able to do that. And that kind of brings me into a different tool that you can do and in your programming is to train your I'm getting ahead of myself. So one of them is to force yourself to train when you're tired. So instead of doing, a lot of people will do their sets first and their GPP after. A good way to train you're tired is do GPP first. You're tired, and then you have to do your sets after that. So it's training your brain and your body to be able to perform even when you're physically tired. Because it is rare that we just do 10-minute sets. We usually have smaller sets that we do in training.
and
So
at competition, especially big ones, a lot of people do multiple lifts,
events,
because
yes.
we're all trying to, well, get team points, or we're trying to
Yep.
get the most out of the cost that we spent to
Mhm.
get there. So they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to lift like multiple lifts, because it's
Yes.
usually over a couple days. So I think, yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. Like learning to train after you have fatigue,
Mhm.
in the weight that you're going to be, lifting in, so that way you know what it feels like,
Yep.
um and you don't get there and mentally you're just you're so stuck on the way that you feel that you basically sabotage yourself.
Yes. And so I also had one too. So I have kind of like steps into, I guess this kind of goes mostly in like a competition day, like survival kit, for example. So I split it up with like before set, the preset panic damage control. Like if you do get to that place, there's a lot of people that they're about to go on the platform, or they have like, 20 minutes or 15 minutes before they go on there, and they start to spiral being like, I can't. So with that is, before the set, we talked about earlier, creating a system that works with training and it works with competition, where you have the same exact routine every time before you do a set or before you do an event when you're competing. So, and to treat it like you're this superstitious person and you have to do it exactly like that before you do your set. And so that can be a specific warm-up routine. Like you do the same thing every time. Then like a specific pump up song that you listen to every time, the same one. I keep hitting my microphone. The same one every time. I have one. It's an instrumental. Have you ever seen the movie Interstellar? There's this long ass song that starts really, really slow and then builds. And that to me is like my training song, because I pace, goes with the slow, and then towards the end, I'm ready. And it's like an 8-minute song. So then at the end, I'm like going with the music and I'm pounding it out, because that to me is a strategy I like to use, where I start slow and at the end I can sprint. And so when everyone else is getting tired, I train myself to sprint at that time. So it's like doing that routine, and having like a specific pump up song or like sounds or something like that. Like it's underrated how much sound can impact us. And so finding that specific song or like meditation or something, which brings me into the next one, is a lot of times we're like, oh, meditation, so woo woo. But I've been doing this since when I was a kid. I competed in karate, and I was doing international competitions and all of those things. And as a kid, and especially in like the teenage years, it's harder to stay confident. And so we used to do this thing, and I brought it into my training now, where we would create a script that's kind of like a meditation. And at this last Worlds, I was extremely nervous, like more nervous than I was the first Worlds that I did. I'm saying that
You know
Kim wasn't
why?
there, so
It's because I wasn't there. I was gonna
just,
say that.
it's because my bestie wasn't there to
So
help me.
me and Shannon met, was that in Latvia?
Hungary,
No, it was in
2021.
Hungary.
Yeah.
So we met for the first time in Hungary in like 2021. She rolled off the plane, and she had on all of her
My garb.
USA gear, all of her elements of flair. And I don't even remember exactly how we first started talking. If we just started talking in the lobby or
No, I
something.
no, I remember exactly when I connected with you. I shot my shot, because I had been following you for a while, and I won that painting. So I won a painting from the competition, like a
Oh,
raffle, and Kim messaged me and asked for like the specifics of what I wanted, and I was really excited and all of that. And then it came, and I was like, okay, so I'm gonna do this thing, and she's either gonna think I'm a fucking weirdo, or she's gonna just love me. And so I sent her a video of me stroking the painting to Marvin Gaye, "Let's Get It On." And that's how I was like, I'm shooting my shot. She's gonna think I'm crazy or love it. And she loved it. She's like, oh my God, I watched that way too many times. And then so we already had that. And then by the time I got there, it was just like, I'm just gonna roll with the quirkiness. Like we're not gonna do like the ease into friendship. I'm just going. And so then I always joke like I made her adopt me as a puppy. And then it just like
yeah.
went
So
from
we
there.
went when she got in, we went and we looked at some, I don't know, some cathedral, or I don't remember where we went now, but I just remember when we were walking to go there that you had on all of your USA apparel. And we were just all dressed in normal clothes, and people were staring at us, like hardcore staring at us. And I just remember us making jokes the whole way along, like
Shane, where are you
about
from? Tell us where
I
you're
was
from.
like, you got enough USA flags there? I was like,
Yeah.
nobody's ever gonna know. They're never gonna know that you're from the United States. I was
Yes,
like,
yes,
and is it Waiting? Is that the or
yes.
is it The Office
Waiting. No, I think it
where
was
they have
waiting.
all the pieces of
40.
flair?
Yes, yeah, like
She's
40.
like, I noticed that you only have 12 pieces of flair. Well, that's the minimum requirement. Yes, but I mean, if you really want to like go all out, look at Tina over there. She's got 40 pieces of flair.
Yes,
Well, Shannon
exactly.
had 40 pieces of flair.
Oh, we go all out. We don't ease in. We're all or nothing over here, which is what I was telling you guys not to do. But anyway, so to cope with my lack of Kim there, I actually made this like meditation. I felt like an idiot doing it, but it actually really worked. So I had ChatGPT write me up a kettlebell sport specific 5-minute meditation. And then I recorded myself doing it and like saying it, and then had music in the background. And then I actually had this like on my phone, there was like this, I don't know how I did it, but there's like this, I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's like a hypnotic thing where it's like the same thing keeps like growing and whatever. So I listened to my 5-minute meditation and I stared at this like hypnotic thing on my phone, and it really helped. I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm in the zone. Let's go. But there's power in that if you're listening to your own voice instead of just like some random person, and get past the thing where like, I hate how my voice sounds on camera. But when you're hearing yourself, it's like you're telling yourself that it's okay, that you're doing this, like you can. And so it's actually like training your brain to listen to yourself in a positive way. And so I
Fake it
highly
till you
recommend.
make it.
Yeah, exactly. And it is. It's like this is me removed telling me that I can do it and to stay calm and all of this instead of listening to some random person. Um, so this is something that again is another behavioral therapy technique that is really good in general if you're having a panic attack or if you are feeling overwhelming feelings
Is
of
it breathing into a bag? I just air
panic.
dicked, but does it breathing into?
Nope. No, because well, there is a piece of breathing and maybe you can do that, but I always joke that it's called tip. And if you want to just dabble in it, just like use the tip or whatever, like just to see how it feels. So, so tip is TIPP in this. And the first T stands for temperature change. I stands for intense exercise. P is paced breathing, and the other P is progressive muscle relaxation. So you do it like this, and it can be really quick. So temperature change is one of the things that like gets me. Sometimes I don't need to do the rest. Like that temperature change is enough. And so what you're doing is you're changing your body temperature to shock your system back to calm. So it like trains your brain to now I need to think about physical, like what I'm physically feeling. So I'm out of my head. So the best way is cold. Cold works better than hot. So you can splash cold water on your face. You
I
can, the way
wonder if
that
this
I
would
do,
work like sour candy. I don't know if you've ever heard
yeah.
this, like utilizing people who you're going through a stressful moment to eat something sour, a
Mm-hmm.
lemon or actual like sour
Mm-hmm.
candy to kind of like shock yourself back into like the
Feeling,
moment.
physical
Yep.
feeling.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And one that
If
works
I'm
best
not
for me.
somewhere where I can get cold water, because sometimes these places don't
Yes.
necessarily have chilly water.
Yes. Yes. But like also, I've had athletes like or told the coaches like to bring a cooler of ice cubes, and so they can go in and they just dunk their hands in ice until they can't tolerate it anymore, and then they come out, and then that's helpful for kettlebell too because for me, my hands swell, and when I'm being
And they're
active,
so little. So, I mean,
they just turn into paws at that time. So I will do that. Or you can run them under, like go into the bathroom and run the water really cold and just keep your hands under them until it just like you can't tolerate it anymore. And then or you can like put a that cold water, do a towel, like soak a towel with it and wrap it around your neck, put it on your face, put it on your
So
chest.
you say this. So when I was younger and I played softball, right? So I played in Texas and it gets very hot.
Mm,
And my mom used to always bring an ice bucket and then she would put ammonia in it. And it was ammonia spirits, not ammonia, sorry. Ammonia spirits in it. And then we would put, rags in there. And then when you would
mhm.
come off the field, even though this really isn't changing your body temperature at all, it's still hot outside. But the overall effect of it feeling cold just made you feel better and made you
Yes.
more energetic. Not that I was thinking about that then. I was just like, oh, it's so cool, but that definitely probably made a big difference in a
Mhm.
lot of times we were playing when it's later in the day, you're getting tired, and then you have this, really cold sensation around your neck, which kind of like perks you back up
Yeah,
to
it's
go
like
back out on the field.
yes. Well, that's going back to like you were saying, like the sour candy, like also that's why power lifters use that like ammonia, um, I don't know what to call it, like powder
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
where they just and it's like wow, like that's why they do it. I mean, we don't need to be snorting cocaine, but like that kind of like,
It probably wouldn't hurt
well,
your performance
I mean,
immediately. I
like drug
mean,
testing, if you like randomly get selected, you don't want to run into that. So anyway, like that type of like shock is really important. And then I in TIP stands for the intense exercise. So really what it is a quick burst of intense effort that burns off the stress hormones and then it spikes productive adrenaline, not panic adrenaline. So that can literally be 20 to 60 seconds of a fast movement of some sort. So like jumping jacks, going outside, and just like sprinting down the parking lot just like one time and then coming back, or something that's not going to tire you out too much before you're set, but it's just enough to like jumpstart the productive physical activity adrenaline. And or you can do like heavy 2-arm explosive swings like for 20 seconds, like something else. And so you did
plus
the
then your
temperature.
body like matches the way you feel.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Otherwise, you're just sitting there and you feel this anxiety, like, oh, I gotta pee again. I gotta, because your heart's like
Yeah, yeah.
increased and
I'm gonna throw
racing.
up.
And then
Yeah.
you get to the bathroom and everybody else has been going to the bathroom, so they're out of toilet paper, and that's more stress,
everyone's everyone's having the pregame poops going on. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that, and then those things match up together, and then it's like, okay, like versus you just feeling that anxiety, like now you're not that you're exhausted, but you are a little bit tired, and
Mhm.
then everything's gonna slow back down together. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And it is. It gives you that jump start that's not mental, it's physical, and that's what we need in that moment. And so the first P in tip is controlling your breath, like pacing your breath. And there's certain ways that work best for it does not the same format of breathing works for everyone. So a lot of times like slowing your breathing down is helpful. So that's doing like triangular breathing where like you're inhaling for a slow 4, you're holding for a slow 4, and then you're exhaling and then you keep repeating that. That tends to work for people, but for me, like I get jittery, and so I will do, and a lot of my athletes will do it too, or I'll have them do it where I hold my breath for like 10-15 seconds and then slowly release. And then slowly release. So that's also like the gasp and hold thing too, where you like pull in air as fast as you can and open your lungs and hold it and then slowly release. And if you think about it, like your lungs are organs, but they're also muscle. So you are contracting and then releasing, and then that like relief hormone just washes over you. So even just holding your breath. I do that with a lot of youth athletes that like cannot calm down, and that they won't be like, you tell them breathe, slowly breathe, and they're like, no, like they want to stay in their anger. And so instead of like, okay, hold your breath then. And to them, and this works for me too, to me, when I'm in that panic, holding my breath helps more than like trying to force myself to slow down. So doing the gasp and hold, or doing like a slow inhale and a forced exhale, like having some kind of and then here's a fun tip that people don't know. but also yawning helps. So if you
Well,
force
that also
yourself,
doesn't it cause a vagal response?
yeah. So
Yeah.
if you yawn and you make yourself yawn 4 times in a row, or however, 4 or 5 times in a row, you are naturally pulling in more oxygen, because that's what yawns are, is they're trying to pull in more oxygen. Also, how many people are yawning right now? Because we're talking about yawning.
I'm trying to not yawn right now, so
Well, there's been times where I'll be working with my athletes and they won't calm down, and then I just yawn in their face. And then they yawn. And then it's like, okay, we took a breath. Okay, good. So that also helps. Like, it helps mentally. It sends oxygen to your brain. And if you think about yawning, or if you're a coach, do that. If they're not calming down, you yawn, and then they will yawn. And so yawning is very underrated for this type of thing. And then you don't have to concentrate on counting and all of that. You're just doing the physical act of pulling in more oxygen and slowing down. You cannot yawn quickly. It's a slow process. Um, and then, so the last thing, the last P is t- uh, progressive muscle relaxation. Now, you don't have to go into like, I need to lay down and do the whole like slow from head to foot muscle relaxation. Instead, it's like you can squeeze your hands as tight as you can for like 5-10 seconds and then slowly release them. That works. You can do like set or like kettlebell specific muscle groups. So I'm like flexing my quads as tightly as I can and then slowly relaxing them. Same with like my shoulders or my grip. Um, and this one's also, the next one is sweet to yourself too, but like giving yourself a straight jacket hug, where you are like wrapping yourself and you have to squeeze yourself as tight as you can for, again, like 10 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds. And then you slowly release yourself like that. Or, like you can go to your coach, like I'm sure Kim would do this, where like, hug me really tight. But like anything like that, where you are tensing or you're contracting for an extended period of time and then slowly relaxing is enough. So again, these all can kind of work individually, but if you need more, doing them in order is good too. So yeah, try the tip just to see how it feels. And so that was kind of like my preset routines that you can do during your set. This is kind of a review where you have like one cue word that you're just letting yourself do, like one cue word, one mantra, and you're staying with that, staying consistent with that. And then, or you have one focus point where I'm just concentrating on rack position, or I'm just concentrating on my breath or cadence or whatever. And then one of the most important ones is no scoreboard. Stop looking at the score. Stop looking at other people's scores. Your goal is to finish this set and do as best as you can. And so instead of concentrating on that, like Kim said, finding a spot on the wall that's not the clock ticking down, not your rep count coming up. It is, I am just in this zone and I'm focusing on the pace that I've developed over my training, and I'm trusting it. Like Kim has always said about like the breathing, like if you do 2 breaths in long cycle, you're usually going to get like 8 reps a minute or something like that. Like like if I stick with this breathing, I don't have to monitor how many reps I'm doing, because I know naturally it just becomes that many reps in that short amount of time. And so really using discipline of being like, I'm not looking at the score, because that'll get in your head. That's a distraction. Instead, you're concentrating on your breath. You've trained for this. This is where your body goes into like muscle memory and routine and autopilot. And so it's trusting that too. And it's like, I don't need the scoreboard for feedback. I'm listening to myself, my body. And then this kind of goes into something that you asked earlier. After the set, I like to think, well, one, you're not judging your set after your set. Like, it's done. You leave it alone, especially if you're doing more events later on. So your performance in your next event is not related to your prior event. So it's like you close the door, that set's over. I'll evaluate it tomorrow. Then I'll watch my video. If you didn't do well, I'll feel all the feels then. Like, I'm disappointed. I'm not judging that feeling. It's there. I'm acknowledging it and I'm moving on. So you are not wallowing or dwelling on your performance in that set. You are transitioning, you are closing the door and prepping for your next event. So then it doesn't mean that you can't evaluate your set. That's where I give like the 24-hour rule is I'll review my video that I, of my set. I'll watch my form. I'll see where I made mistakes, what I can change next time. Making mental notes, not during the chaos, especially before your other event. So remember, you cannot teach someone to swim while they're drowning. So if you're in this overwhelming adrenaline, you have a disappointment because you didn't get the placing that you wanted or the numbers that you wanted, you cannot logically evaluate your performance and come up with a plan of action to adjust that. So you have to teach yourself to close the door and then be like, I will reevaluate. I will use this as an opportunity to reevaluate, but you have to force yourself to be like, door is closed. I'm focusing on my next event. And that's like, again, you're retraining your pathways instead of being like, oh, I sucked at my, my long cycle set. Like, how am I going to even do snatch? Because for me, snatch is harder, and it's like, by doing that, your snatch set is now dependent on your long cycle set, but they are completely different things. And so that's important when you're when you're after set. And if you're disappointed, is not riding that emotion, acknowledging it, letting it go, and then moving on to something different. I wanted to go over, okay. So, going into training your mind the way that you train your body. Like, we're really good most of the time, but we're good at coming up with or learning new ways to train our bodies to prepare for kettlebell sport. And it's easier. It's easier to train your body than it is to train your mind. And so I came up with some, I'm calling it SMP instead of GPP. So specific mental preparation instead of general physical preparation. So, but either way, like you are adamantly and purposefully making mental training part of your routine. You can't just expect to like get and develop mental toughness, that you have to practice it. And so you practice your reactions. And I like to say too, like, training yourself to respond, not react, is very helpful for anything in life. Like, if you're having a fight with someone, not reacting, responding, pausing, responding, practicing that. So you're training those mental pathways and how to handle thought traps. So Kim kind of said this earlier, but just to like reevaluate or reiterate it, is you're not training yourself to avoid breaking. You're training yourself to recover faster when you do, because you're going to. Like, going into it thinking like, I'm so resilient, I will never have a bad day, or I will never break. You will. You absolutely will, no matter what.
I think that this is like one of those things that you could equate to like the doers do what the checkers will check, right? So that's part of you writing down like what's happening in your sets, right? So you can hold yourself accountable to the next time you do that training. Okay, what did I do? Okay, I want to do this much more. Okay, well, this time I didn't do as good on that, so I need to do this to make up for it. So kind of like obligate yourself to the training, because the motivation isn't always there. Which is like, I love when people are here and I get to train with other people, because you feel more obligated to complete the set, to not quit, to keep going forward, to do another round, because people are watching and they're there with you. You might not always get that when you're training alone. So some ways that you can get around, like having, well, one is it does always help having, even for me, like having a coach that is programming for you. I thought I had something on my shirt, but it's my sports bra. That somebody is programming for you, because you feel obligated to come in and do that training for that day, because it's written down already and that person is expecting you to do it. Right?
Accountability,
So
yeah.
it's accountability. So, ways to create accountability for yourself is film yourself, not because you need to watch it, but because it means like there's record of it, right? There's record that you quit. There's record that you stopped. And so, or to do a live session with somebody else who is a garage kettlebell, right? They're doing it at home because you feel obligated to continue doing your set because that person is also doing the set with you.
Mhm.
So figuring out ways that you are able to hold yourself accountable
Mhm.
to whatever makes you feel guilty.
Yeah. I like to say too, you find
That's probably not
yourself,
the right term, but
yeah, you find yourself an accountability buddy where you guys are ride or die, And so when one person is feeling less inclined to train, the other person's like, let's go, and that's what it's good to have a coach too, or a trainer or something. But like, if you don't have access to that,
posting your sets. Like I have to go, oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna
yes,
post what I did today. Not because I
yeah,
really give a shit what people think about it. I don't
because
need your
people
comment on
always
it. I'm
think
just
about
doing
it.
it to hold myself accountable
Yes.
because like if I didn't post it, then I didn't go do it. And I have to,
Well, and you think too,
so
like you're also, I think posting failed sets or whatever is a good thing because it shows other people realistic. And so we're not stuck in that social media of like everything is always perfect. It's like, watch me drop this bell, or like give you showing other people that it's okay
yeah.
to
And
do
also
that.
giving yourself grace to have bad
Yeah.
days, right? Like, I mean, I did a set the other night, or I did it like a week ago, and I made it, during the training set, it was like 8 minutes with the 20s. And I made it through totally fine. It was like easy peasy. And then the other day I did it again and I was dying at like 5 minutes. Why? I don't know. Like that day just wasn't the day.
Yeah.
So I could have just stopped and put the bells down, which I did do because I was like, I can't make it. I can't breathe. This isn't going well. My
Mhm.
arms are already tired, and so I stopped. Then I sat down, recovered for a minute, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back through and I'm going to do another 4 minutes. And if I
Mhm.
can do that 4 minutes, then I'm going to count for myself that accounted for my set. So I really was doing an extra minute on top of because I was only doing the 8 minutes. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to do 4 minutes. So that'll make it actually 9 minutes. But started back up and I felt way better on the second time around, even though I was actually already technically fatigued. I'd already done 5 minutes, right? And then basically failed and put the bells down. I came back in and finished out. And on that last minute, I was like, I'm going to sprint. I'm going to sprint to make up for cheating and putting the bell down. Like that's my punishment. Um, but then I got done and I was like, okay, well, I now I've done the volume that I was expected. I got the work out of it, even
Mhm.
though I didn't complete the set to
Mhm.
prescription. Like where am I going to find my win for today? Because if I just stop now, you're right, I didn't have a game. I just stopped.
Mhm.
Right. So
Mhm.
like what can I do to get back in it?
Yes.
And to make those deals with yourself, like, okay, like how am I gonna make this a win today?
Mhm.
Because even I have bad days where I'm just not going well. It sucks. It feels so heavy, and then other days I pick it up and I'm like, this is the shit. I love this.
Mhm.
Like I could go all day.
Well, you look at it like I try to equate it to like weight fluctuation if you like are on the scale. Like one day you're like, hell yeah, I'm at my goal weight and whatever. And then especially if you're female, the next day you're like 5 pounds heavier. And then if you think like everything's ruined, or whatever, that's just not the case. It's just about where you're at that day. And so like you may have done it, you may have had a really good day. And we should actually, I don't know if you've done this, but do like a webinar like this about training like with your menstrual cycle because I think that's really important too for women. But like for women during our menstrual cycle, we have certain days that you're like a animal, like you can handle way more, you can lift heavier, your heart rate doesn't get as high as it usually does. And so if you like really take advantage of that, you can make larger gains mentally and physically if you train that way on that day. But then understanding that there are also other days in your cycle that you're dipping. And so you during that day, the like superhuman day, you might crush it. You might lift heavier, you might do more sets, and then you do that exact same workout like a week later and you can't do it. It's like that's not necessarily because you're failing, it's because of where your body is at. And so there's like a couple things too where like the different mental drills, like we talked about a messy set, a messy rep, and like building tolerance for that, and I talked about too like fatigue rehearsal sets, I wanted to kind of just add one last thing to that is like you have to learn what panic feels like in a no pressure situation. So you're tired, you feel like you're going to fail. You almost have to practice that panic in a way that's not, there's no pressure. You don't have to worry about your performance on the platform or anything like that. You're just learning and you're teaching yourself how to respond to that. And then, so back to the messy rep tolerance or set tolerance is you allow for them to happen without mentally collapsing on yourself. So that,
Hmm.
like I said before, bad rep, that one doesn't matter. It's over. Next one matters, so you're acknowledging them. Ooh, that one was not good. Let's make the other one good. And then, so you are one more rep. That rep doesn't matter. The next one does. What I do from here matters, not what's already happened. And then the last one I have is doing resetting your focus. This is in training. So every 5 to 10 reps, no exceptions, you retrain your attention to switch. So 5, 10 reps. Now I'm concentrating on bell path or something. Next 10 reps. Now I'm concentrating on how the fixation feels. Like you're training your body or your brain to switch. So it's not necessarily you're trying to, well, you're also keeping yourself busy during the set too, in a way that you are concentrating on productive things, but you are teaching a switch no matter what, that you can on a dime switch your attention. And so that is a good way to kind of train yourself so that if you get into that panic mode, my brain already knows how to make a hard switch because I practiced that. And so it doesn't matter where you're at. You might be having a thought immediately. Oh, it's been 5 reps. Transition, different one. What am I concentrating on right now? And then, yeah, the more you train that, the more likely you're going to do that under pressure. So giving yourself that switch is, and you don't have to do it all the time. It's more of like, you're not going to do full sets every time. It's just adding to your training. And that can be a really powerful thing, is training your body, training your body and your brain at the same time. There's a couple other things I wanted to go. Oh, so when we were talking about not making every set feel like a test, or sorry, every session feel like a test, there's other things that you want to that you can do with preventing burnout. And another one is understanding that not every set is a war with the weight, with yourself, with the clock. So burnout happens when every session feels like it needs to be maximum effort, and that, or every set is part of your identity, or your is a competence test, where it's like, this set sucked. I'm terrible at kettlebells, or like, I'll never ever be able to lift this weight and stuff. Just like getting to that, where that's where burnout happens, when you start coming down on yourself. So instead, you shift it by looking at it as some sets. Some sets are practice. Some sets are exploring. Like, can I snatch this 25? Maybe. And so you do it. And if you're able to do it, you're like, damn, yeah, like I could do that. Like, you're exploring different ways, or exploring different form techniques, like you're just trying new things and giving yourself a sense of accomplishment when you do. And then also, some sets are just showing up, just being there, picking up the bell. Doesn't have to be heavy. You can have your program, but it's okay to just show up for that set. Like, if you cannot make it through that program, mentally you're just drained and exhausted, just be like, okay, I'm just going to like snatch for fun for 15 minutes or something. And you're just there and you've done it. And that's when it comes into, as soon as that bell's picked up, I'm finishing this, little wins at a time. Like, all of this can accumulate. So just understanding that, like, if you treat every set like life or death, your brain is going to choose death. That's just because it's like, it's not worth it to me or whatever. And then you'll start not showing up as often. So teaching yourself that showing up can look different depending on the day. Today, my day is just going to the gym and like swinging the kettlebell around and seeing where I end up. And then you just end up doing more anyway, because you showed up and you're there. You're already there. Your endorphins are going. It's just that step in the door that tends to be one of the hardest things. The Another thing too is training your, or wait, hold on. Also doing weekly or monthly check-ins with yourself, being like, do I still want to train? Am I consistent, or am I constantly drained before I start? Or am I feeling pressure instead of choice and challenge? So even if you're like, nope, I'm good, at least you're asking yourself that and you're opening the dialogue with yourself. But then if there's a yes to any of them, that's when you need to take steps before it becomes a spiral, being like, okay, why do I feel pressured right now? What triggered that
Hmm.
sense of pressure? And then work on that. But like, you have to ask yourself those things. Um, Another shift is training your ceiling and your floor. So ceiling is max performance days. You have to do those. They suck, but you have to do them. And then, but also having days where you train your floor. So to you, what's your floor? What is the minimum viable session? Could be like I said earlier, just showing up for 15 minutes, light bells, just concentrate on technique. But what is your floor? And allow yourself to train both and like in the middle of them too. Like it's a continuum. So that way, on your worst days, you're just like, all right, I'm just going to work the floor today. Like that, I'm just going to hit my floor. And so you don't skip the session. You give yourself permission to shrink a little bit. And then that's where you can work that floor session too. And then mentally, you realize, or you absorb the fact that it is a continuum, not an all or nothing type thing. So that's another technique that you can do. Um, I feel like I'm going fast. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. I actually only have one more thing. Um,
Good, because we're at an hour and 45 minutes
per-
already.
Perfect.
This will probably be, I don't know if it's the longest one I've done, but
No, I think our last one was longer. So the last thing about like burnout prevention, is knowing that emotional recovery matters, like not just physical recovery. So you can physically recover, and usually you do because that's just how the body is, but you can stay mentally fried and you don't feel like you've recovered, but like your body is. But if your brain is not, or your emotions, or you're dysregulated, you're not going to get the best out of your performance. And so, ways that you can fix that are not analyzing every bad session right away or during. So, that 24-hour rule, like, I'm just going to finish this and I can think about it tomorrow. When I'm fresh, I'll look at my video. I think um, videoing is one of the best things that you can do for yourself in practice and competition. So, you can watch your technique. You can watch, like, if you truly watch, you can see when you're starting to fail, and you can see those telltale signs. Like for me, I notice that, like, if I'm snatching with my left, which is my non-dominant side, and I start to lose grip, I stop using this hand. Like I stop swinging with it. It just like, so I don't know why I do it, but I know that that's a sign of that I'm fatiguing. And so, but I also know that using that arm helps. So it's like, I have to remember, if I'm not using that arm, if it's just like laying dead, that I'm going to fatigue faster. I have to use this other arm to help myself with momentum to come up. So knowing those signs of like, okay, I'm making this face, or like my drop is turning into this. And then by seeing it, you can start acknowledging it while you're doing it. Uh, and then you can, like, just like other sports do, where they have like video days, they watch their practice, they watch their game, and they figure out where they can make improvements based on that. Because when you're in it, you're not paying attention to those things, or you're not taking
hmm.
note of them. You just can't. Um, we talked about this too. It's easier when you're a grown up because you have like kids or a job or something like that. Like this is not your job. But being able to separate yourself from your training. So it's really hard. And that's why we need like seasons, pre-season, in season, post season. So you're training differently throughout the year, where you're getting everything you need, but then you stay on, like you stay evolving. So you have time to train just strength. You have time to train just endurance and mobility. And then it all comes back together when you are in season. So that's why we have seasons of training. And that's why we should. The weird thing about kettlebell is it's like all year, like there's no seasons, but you do need to make yourself have seasons like that. And that's where you have a coach too. Like a coach can help you program that out, being like, what's your main goal for this year? It's worlds. Okay. So worlds is now or at this time. So you're going to start preseason here. You're going to be, your build season here, your endurance and your mobility is here. And now we are hitting that in season training where you're going hard. And then right before the competition, you're easing back, you're deloading, like you have to have that. Like that's why there is a macro cycle type training, is because it trains you in the way that your body needs to do best in your performance. And then one more fix is, like I had mentioned earlier, is having one session per week or bi-weekly that's light or fun. Switching it up, having fun with friends, do some juggling, whatever, like circle jerking with your friends. You never know. Okay. And then I just have a couple final messages for you guys. So understand going in that every set will try to convince you to quit early, every single set, because your brain just looks at it that way because it gets challenging. Even a minute can get challenging depending on what you're lifting. So understanding that that isn't failure. That's just the sport. That's what we signed up for, where kettlebell is physical and mental resilience. And like 10 minutes is a long time. It takes a lot of mental resilience to get through a 10-minute set. So understanding this is what I signed up for. Like this isn't unfair. This is what I chose to do. And so your job isn't to eliminate that negative voice. It's to stop obeying it too soon. So we talked about it's telling me to stop. I stop. And then after I'm like, I could have kept going. So that's, you obeyed the voice too soon. So you're challenging it instead. And then another thing is kettlebell sport isn't just training to get stronger, better, being the best. It's to still want to be doing it next year. So it's not just about that. It's about how can this be sustainable? I love this. I need to make sure I still want to do this next year. The strongest athletes aren't the ones that go the hardest. They're the ones that plan out and do not damage control, preparation mentally as well. So learning where your body is and responding to that, not just like forcing yourself every time. So that's a very empowering thing, is understanding where my mental capacity is, where my physical capacity is, and then accommodating that, and then giving those small goals when you are at a low point. And so the athletes who are the strongest as well, like to piggyback off that, those are the ones who just don't quietly disappear. They keep going and they adjust to help themselves keep going. So that needs to be a focus of yourself. If you take one thing away from this, is understanding that like you have the control and you don't have to go hard all day, every day of your training. You just have to make sure that you still enjoy it next week, next month, next year. And you do that by training your brain the way you train your body, and then giving yourself like a step-by-step process, like an if-then, like if this happens, then I do this. If this happens, and create that system, because systems will outweigh mood. And then when you successfully design a system and execute the system that's part of your identity, then you feel better about yourself and your performance in the sport. In conclusion,
Well,
the end.
If anybody has any questions, you can continue to post on this post, and Shannon will come in and answer anything that she can answer. I really appreciate you for coming on, hanging out with me again.
Always.
Uh, it, if anybody has a topic they would like to cover, or that they would like to hear about, feel free to message me, or you can post on this post and I'll go look at it.
Training for your menstrual cycle. I'm
We can do that one
serious.
next.
Yeah,
I'll put it on the calendar.
Good.
We can talk about Aunt Flo.
And Flo, how she's
Yeah.
such a bitch.
Yeah. And then I will get this posted up on the YouTube page for anybody that missed it. It'll be on Facebook probably for like 30 days before they delete them out of there. So Thanks again. I hope you have a good Sunday.
Thanks,
Mm,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah.